I'm Lorna Luft, and Judy Garland was my mother. And I'm going to answer some questions about The Wizard of Oz. Okay? Let's go.
Okay, how did the Wizard of Oz get that title for the movie?
Okay, The Wizard of Oz got the title because it was from a whole bunch of books written by L. Frank Baum. I think on whole there was an average of 12 to 13 Oz books. And it was a series of books that L. Frank Baum wrote in the 1900s. And he was a wonderful writer, and he was starting to write the book called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and he didn't really know how to get a word like Oz. Well, he was sitting at his desk one afternoon, and he looked, and there was a small filing cabinet. And on the filing cabinet, they had A to N, and on another filing cabinet, it said O to Z. So he thought that was a very funny title. And basically, he said, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And he got the word Oz from a filing cabinet.
Okay. With the series of books that you said L. Frank Baum had written, the numerous ones, how long did it take to produce the movie?
Well, it took almost a year to make The Wizard of Oz, and in 1938, that was a very long time because the movie factories in Hollywood at the time were trying to put a movie a week into their theaters, which of course they owned. And so this movie took a long time. And one of the reasons that it took so long is because of, first of all, the casting. The casting was not going to be the cast that you now see on the movie. The original people that they wanted is they wanted Buddy Ebsen was cast, who of course was in the wonderful television series the Hillbillies of Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hills Hillbillies. And he was a wonderful singer dancer, and he was cast as the Tin Man. They wanted the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. They wanted the man for Oz to be W.C. Fields. And of course, they wanted Dorothy to be Shirley Temple. Well, as they were going along and they were trying to ask these people if they could make these deals for them, they couldn't. And my mom had gotten the book of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from her father before her father passed away, my grandfather. And she had read the book, and she really loved the book. So when MGM acquired the rights to the book, of course, they wanted my mom to be in it. But the powers that be in New York, who ran the financing for MGM, thought that Shirley Temple would be a bigger box office draw. Well, they went and they auditioned Shirley Temple, and she certainly couldn't sing as well as my mom. And plus the fact she was under contract to 20th Century Fox. And so they wouldn't let her out of her contract, thank God. And that's how my mother became Dorothy in the movie, and that's how they cast The Wizard of Oz. And of course, Buddy Ebsen, who was the Tin Man, filmed for about a week, but he then got the silver makeup that they used on him was he ingested it through breathing, and he almost died from the silver makeup, and so he had to be replaced by Jack Haley Jr. So there was some interesting casting, but I don't think that anybody else besides the main characters who wound up in The Wizard of Oz wouldn't be the movie that it is today.
So you had mentioned that the casting that Shirley Temple almost took played the role of Dorothy, but along with the directors, I have read that Warner had produced the movie before it was going to come out. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Say that once more, sweetheart.
Okay, so besides the main characters being double casted, who was going to play which role, I had read that there were more than one director who was producing the movie, and I was wondering if you could tell me about that.
Okay, yes, there were 4 or 5 directors on The Wizard of Oz. Okay, The Wizard of Oz, as we know, as you probably have heard, in the 1930s, they had many directors working at MGM, and they would just rotate these directors. And so the first director on The Wizard of Oz was a man by the name of Richard Thorpe, and he basically designed what Dorothy was going to look like, and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion. And he designed all the look that he wanted. And he shot for a while, but the powers that be did not like what my mom looked like. She sort of looked like Marsha Brady. And she was in a blonde wig, and they didn't like it, and they had a whole lot of makeup on her, and they didn't like that at all. So after quite a while, they fired Richard Thorpe, and they started again from scratch. And then they brought in George Cukor, they brought in King Vidor, they brought in Busby Berkeley, and then they finally wound up with the man who got the only credit for directing The Wizard of Oz, was a man by the name of Victor Fleming. And Victor Fleming in 1939 not only directed The Wizard of Oz, but he also directed Gone with the Wind. So the 2 biggest blockbuster movies of all time was directed by an incredibly talented man by the name of Victor Fleming.
Okay. Um, with as we both know, like this movie has been watched by so many people, and just because of its great film, why do you think that it's still number one viewed of all time today?
I think that The Wizard of Oz is so important today and has been for so many years, and because so many generations have sat with their children or have remembered when they were children to see this movie because of the story. And it's such a simplistic story because it really is about knowledge, and it's about heart, and which is love, and it's about courage, and it's about home. And those are the most, they're very simple messages, but everyone can identify with them. It is also about good versus evil. And I think that because of the storyline and because of the actors, and because the actors were so amazingly honest that everybody believes every single character in the film, and for children from many more years to come, they may not know the actors' names. They may not know Ray Bolger and Jack Haley Jr. and the incredible Burt Lahr and Judy Garland and Margaret Hamilton, but they will know the names of Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, and of course the Wicked Witch. So, and of course Billy Burke, who was Glinda the Good Witch. But they may not know their names, but they will know those characters forever, because The Wizard of Oz is part of American culture, and it will be loved by millions and millions of children and adults for many more years to come, because I think the message is just so iconic.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, for the movie, I was wondering if you had a favorite scene in it.
Do I have a favorite scene? I think my favorite scene in the movie, of course, is when the movie goes from black and white into color.
Yeah.
When the house lands in Oz, and it goes from when Dorothy opens the door. And I think that is just a part of music and movie history, because the music is so important in that scene. And when she opens the door and you see it go into Technicolor, it is just something that still to this day, I mean, I think we're all, well, yes, we are. We're all more jaded. We've all seen a lot. We've all been oohed and awed by the wonderful magic of Hollywood. But to go back and see that one part that I think every child remembers of that door opening and the Technicolor starting it was just sort of, I think we all will remember how we first and where we were when we first saw that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, Obviously today, like you said, it's watched by so many people because of the message that it displays. And I was just wondering, also, like, lastly, if it just gives you that same feeling as you watch the movie today.
Yeah, I mean, you know something, I'm very fortunate because that movie is part of my family. And it's a movie that is very important to me, and I'm very protective over the movie. And I think that the movie is so special because, as I said, it all came together to make one of the greatest movies ever in motion picture history. And that was because of the actors and the writers and all the directors. And when you think about it, the movie should not have been as perfect as it is. But I think that because it is part of our culture and because it is the story, I certainly, at this age, I respect the movie. I'm protective of the movie. I love the movie. My children, who are now adults, um, they love the movie. They they always say to me, it's cool that their grandmother was Dorothy. Um, it's something that is part of my heritage and part of my family. And I love the movie just as much as someone who may not as much as someone who has seen the movie for the very, very first time. And like someone who saw it for the very first time, yes, I was terrified of the monkeys. Yes, I was terrified of the Wicked Witch. Yes, every single solitary emotion I went through as every child did watching the movie. It was just that my mom was Dorothy.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for doing this project. Thank you for being a fan of the movie. And to all of your class, thank you very, very much. And once again, there's no place like home.